everyone, welcome back to What Valerie Makes. I'm Valerie, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing some of my recent sewing makes. These are some of the things that I'm very proud of / have been wearing along like a lot since I've made them, and yeah, some of the things I just want to share with you and kind of why I made them and how it's going. So let's jump into that, and let's start. What should we start with? We're gonna go by Pattern Company. Let's start there. The first thing I want to share is this Indigo Dress by TillyButtons. Now, I made the size 7 in this, and I did a 1-inch broad back adjustment, and I added 1 inch to the bodice of this pattern. This fabric is a Mood Fabrics like exclusive. It is a viscose jacquard fabric, and I had it in my stash for a little bit, and I was like, oh, I really wanted something that like showed off the fabric because I really love it. So I was like, oh, the Indigo Dress is perfect for that because it's just like a plain, gathered skirt. So that's what I did, but I did end up having to buy like a half of a yard more fabric because I couldn't get the sleeves out of it. So good thing I could order more, and I just ordered a half a yard more of this fabric, but that's okay. It came in. I'm happy with this. I wore it a lot during the fall because it's such a fall time dress, but I'm also planning on wearing it in the springtime because I think that it can go pretty much either way. There's a slight too much fabric right at the top neck. So I already fixed it on my pattern piece, and I just shaved off a little bit because you fold this front bodice on the fold. So I just at the very top took out, like I said, maybe a half of an inch to remedy that. But overall, I really like this. It's very comfortable. I added the waist ties to cinch it in a little bit, and I put in the pockets. I might go ahead and shorten the sleeves, but we'll see. We'll see. I should probably button this, huh? The next thing that I wanted to share with you is this TillyButtons Olive Pinafore. I've been really wanting to make this pattern since I got the book that it comes in. Because this is the Make It Simple book that this comes in. And yeah, I've had it like marked since I got it like almost 3 years ago. And I'm like, I really want to make that. So I ended up using this houndstooth fabric that I'm pretty sure I got from Mood Fabrics. I really enjoy the outcome. It does have like these fisheye darts in the front and the back, so you kind of get a pretty decent fit. Now, I ended up making the size 5, and it ended up coming out really well, like the fit. I will say that I should have known this going into it, but I didn't, and I obviously didn't make any kind of toile or anything like that, but I should have done a small bust adjustment because it ended up having like fabric in the armpit. So I ended up making like bust darts. And honestly, it doesn't, I think it looks like it could be part of the pattern. Like, it's really not a big deal whatsoever. But I ended up having to do it to the facing as well. And because I use the same fabric with the facing, I do find that it's a little bit bulky right there. And that was one of my notes, to use a different fabric for the facing. Or honestly, this would be really nice as like a fully lined pinafore because it is slightly sticky. So it doesn't ride up or anything, but like when I'm wearing it with tights, you can kind of like tell that it's just like clinging a little bit to the tights. It doesn't ride up, thank God. Depending on what fabric you're using, it probably would be good if you just fully lined it, and then you wouldn't have to worry about the facings. I'm really happy I made it. I'm glad I gave it a go, and next time I'm gonna change the pattern, and then it will be like my perfect pinafore. This one is the lower neckline. They do have a higher one, and I think that I would actually like a little bit of a lower one because I use this as like a layering piece, and I think that this is still pretty high. So I might play around with the neckline as well with this one for the next one. Overall, I think it's a great one for my first time. Yeah, and I really enjoyed wearing it in the fall. And I could wear it now too, I just haven't because it's been pretty cold here. Layering it with some like boots and a string. Layering it with some boots and like a turtleneck. Perfect. We're gonna move on to some True Bias patterns. Now, I used to be subscribed to Needle Sharp, which is just a sewing box subscription. Highly recommend if you are looking for a subscription, like a sewing subscription box. I just needed to not be tempted to get fabrics and patterns that I don't really need right now. So I'm on a little bit of a pause for my Needle Sharp box, but I did have this one that I hadn't sewn up. I can't even remember what month this box was, but I knew for sure I wanted the pattern. And I love this corduroy, this burgundy corduroy. So it was like a no-brainer for me to definitely get this box. So this is the Blair Skirt, and I made a size 14 at the hips. That's not true. A size 14 at the waist, and I graded out to a 16 at the hips. And that actually worked out pretty perfect. I used all the hardware that came with the pattern in my box. So the buttons came with it and the little hardware piece for the fabric belt if you make it. Now, I didn't, but I'm gonna go back and make it. I didn't think I would use it, but I think that it would actually look really good. So I'm gonna go, I have plenty of fabric left. So I'm going to go ahead and make the belt that comes with this pattern as well. But I love the mini skirt and I really like all the views. So this is obviously the mini view, and then they have like a couple different lengths. And depending on the fabric that you use, you can really get a different looking skirt. But I'm really happy, and I really like the pleated box pockets that are on the front of this. I ended up using this really cute cotton fabric that was in my stash, and it's just a bunch of cats. So I did that for the waistband lining and my pocket linings because I thought that that'd be really cute. And I actually wore this to a couple Christmas parties that I was invited over the holiday season, and I really like it. I'm looking forward to making some more in the summer and using different fabrics, maybe like a light denim. But yeah, I'm excited to give this pattern another go once it is springtime. This dress, I have a lot to say. I will start with that I really love how it came out. I think it's really beautiful, pretty much exactly how I wanted it. And I'm gonna start there. So this is the True Bias Shelby dress. And I had made this pattern probably 3 years ago, and I was a different size then. I traced out the size 8, which then I ended up doing so many adjustments to it back then, and I was very new to sewing, so actually the dress like didn't come out well at all. It was wearable, but it just felt really off when I was wearing it. I don't think anyone would have been able to tell, but when I put it on, I just felt like really uncomfortable. Now, when I wanted to give the Shelby dress another go, I knew that I was going to have to retrace the pattern, but on my pattern pieces, I had traced the size 8, but because I made a bunch of adjustments, I like marked the adjustments. So I had and I ended up taking in the bust like so much, and I did like a bunch of things where I was like, maybe this will fit me now as a size 8. And then I can just do some of my other adjustments that I normally do. So I really went with it. Now, I got this beautiful fabric at the thrift store for like $5, and there was like 2.5 yards, maybe 3 yards of fabric. So I was like, I'm just going to try it with this fabric and just give it a go. So I ended up using the size 8 traced out pattern of the Shelby dress. And what I did do is I did 1.5 inch broad back adjustment. And then I also did a 1.5 inch bicep adjustment on this pattern because the arms were pretty tight And I remembered that from the last time. And then I also wanted a long sleeved, and I really love like the sleeve construction of the Marnie dress. So I ended up just using the bottom piece of the Marnie blouse and dress pattern by Tilly and the Buttons. And I added that piece to the sleeve and was going to put the elastic in so that it came in at the end. But I ended up really liking the look of the flowy, like I think it actually fit with like the style and the fabric pattern of this dress. You know, it has the back tie, the buttons down the front, and these buttons I've had in my stash. They're a vintage button and they go perfectly well with the fabric. I love how this came out. Now that I know some of the things, like how to fix things and like do it correctly and well the first time around, it just like, there's no better feeling when your vision actually comes out and it works well. So like I said, I love this dress and I'm excited to start wearing it again because this, I mean, I used this fabric because very cheap, low stakes. If I messed up, I wouldn't be like heartbroken over it. But in reality, it is a beautiful fabric. It feels super soft. And the colors are beautiful. I really like it. And I am going to wear this out to dinner. I hadn't really gotten to wear this because I felt like it was too springtime when it was like fall. And I was wearing more things like, you know, I was wearing more of like this color palette in the fall than this. Oh, my light went out. Let me fix it. Okay, the light is fixed. Where was I? Okay, take two. I hadn't really had a chance to wear it. I think I wore it once. And then I was like, well, I'll put it away for the spring. But I think I'm going to wear this out to dinner next week. One of our favorite restaurants is closing down, sadly, here in Buffalo. So I got a reservation before the time was up. And I think I'm going to wear this out to dinner. But I really love it. And now the pattern pieces are perfect. And I'm going to be making this dress again once it gets a bit warmer. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. And the last garment piece that I want to share with you is this RoseryApparel Pansy Dress. I've had this black, like crinkle viscose in my stash for a long time. I'm pretty sure I got this from Mood Fabrics or Joanne, one of the two, I can't remember. I think I actually got it in the mail, so it would have been from Mood. But yeah, I've had this in my fabric stash for a long time, and I think I was like going to make a pair of like flowy pants with it, but I never did, and it was just sitting there. And then one day I was like, I really want like an everyday black dress, like throw on black dress that I can put like, you know, sweaters over or vests over. I want it to be black. I want it to be long sleeved and like a short. And I was like, oh, I have the Pansy dress and I've made it before and I really like that version. I actually was lucky enough to get one of the kits that Janelle put together when she released the Pansy dress. And I really like that version. It is much different than this one. What I did with this one is I made the size 10, but I did a 1.5 inch broad back adjustment on this. And then I also added an inch to the bodice so that it came down a little bit more at my waist. The other thing that I did do is I ended up lining the bodice with some of this like satin fabric that I had in my stash from a saltwater slip dress that I made. So I ended up lining the bodice with that because this fabric is a little bit see-through. And so I really wanted to be comfortable in it. So I lined just the bodice with that. And I put the pockets in, made the short length. It came out really well. The other thing that I did do is that I did take out about 1 inch of the fullness in the sleeve because it comes with like a pretty puffy sleeve. And I don't mind a gathered sleeve, but when I don't really like a big sleeve on me personally. I wanted to, I've tried it, and then I just don't wear them. So I knew I wanted to do that. So I took about 1 inch, and it still is a big, like it's a big ass sleeve still. This is a big sleeve. The one thing that I'm gonna go back and do is I think I'm going to take the 1 inch elastic out of this and maybe make because the sleeve comes to like here, and I wish it came to here. So I might take out the 1-inch cuff elastic and maybe put in a smaller elastic so that it just comes down a little bit, but also it's like the thing that's like, does it bother me that much? Which I don't think it does. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. But that's the only thing that I can really say that I wish I did differently. I'm looking at my notes. Lined it, silky fabric, very comfortable and wearable, with lots of things in my wardrobe. Okay. Yeah. And then the neckline is finished with bias binding that you tie in the back. And I just had black bias binding actually in my in my stash, so it worked out perfectly. If I make this again, I might stop the bias binding right at the keyhole back and put in like a piece of elastic and a button to close it off that way, just because this gets a little bit annoying, but it's, again, not that bad. And I really love this. I think I've worn this so much. It's like, I don't know what I want to wear, but we're going out to dinner, and I'm like this, and then I'll put like a cardigan over it, or I'll put a vest over it. It's such a really good layerable staple, and I'm so happy that and it was just like out of a whim. It came in my mind. I was like, oh, I have the Pansy Dress pattern, and I seriously grabbed it, did the adjustments on my pattern pieces, grabbed the fabric, and made it. And I think within 2 days from like me thinking it, 2 days, here's the end result. So I was like really proud of how this came out. It is very similar to the Indigo Dress, I feel. I almost like took out the pattern pieces to do a little bit of a comparison, and maybe I will. Obviously, this one has a much puffier sleeve, but you can always like slash and spread. Yeah, it's a very similar like fit, I feel like, to the Indigo, but I'm still happy I have both of the patterns, and happy that I made actually both of them up within the last few months. So very happy with this one. And last but certainly not least, the last thing that I wanted to share is not a garment, but a bag. And I had finally made the BF Patterns Bestie Bag. Okay. Now I have a tried and true everyday bag pattern, and that is my Harrelson belt bag by Noodlehead. And so when everyone was like making up this, and they're different. They are completely different styles, but I also am one to like wear the same bag if I'm every day. And so I'm like, how many everyday bags do I need? I have a black Harrelson, and I have like a more springtime one. Perfect. But I finally gave in to I was like, everybody's making it. I should at least get the pattern. There was like a sale, so it ended up only being like $8. And I was like, let's do that. So I got it. And then this ended up being one of my favorite makes. Like, this might be within the last few months. This is probably one of my favorite makes that I've done. Now, this fabric is an old vintage Talbot's skirt that I had. The waistband was cropped. Let me grab it. I've got it. I cut it off. I threw away the waistband part, but this was like the front of the skirt. Like, you could buckle it like this down the front of the whole skirt. And so I really loved the skirt. I thought it was like a cool design, and I loved the like clasp. It reminded me of like a bag pattern for sure. I wonder, yeah, you could see that pretty all right. This is a pleather. And so the actual waistband part was like disintegrating. It was like flaking off. I was like, can I get more like of that fabric, or even maybe even a black? But the way that it was constructed, like, I would have had to take everything apart, and these buckles don't come off. Like, they're on there. And I tried to like see if I could pound them off to then put them back on, and I can't seem to figure it out. So I was like, well, let me use the fabric. So I ended up using the fabric for this belt bag, and I love it. Now, I did end up putting the tag of the Talbot's skirt in here so that I would never forget, and I'm happy that I did that. And then I ended up just lining it with some of this linen that I had in my stash from a Zadie jumpsuit that I made. Everything else was in my stash. I had a zipper, I had The webbing, now the webbing, this is a 1.5 inch webbing and it calls for a 2 inch. So I didn't necessarily follow the pattern. I did have a 2 inch of like a cream, but I thought that the black would be better. So this is a little bit thinner. I don't care, but I basically had all of this in my stash and I really like the way that it comes out. And I've been carrying this bag ever since. I like it. It holds my water bottle. I put like my snacks for going to work in. You know, when the pattern is hyped and you're like, okay, everyone, all right. And that's how I felt about the Bestie bag. But you know what? I love it. It's super easy to carry, goes with everything. And I'm really happy with how it came out. I did interface the fabric. It got a little bit bulky in some sections because obviously there were some seams in the skirt that I couldn't get around. So then that seam ended up being in another seam. So there was like almost double the fabric that it should be. And so some places it was a little bit like, just go slow, but my machine is a beast. She can do anything. So perfect. She did it. Also, it took me like an afternoon to make. It was so quick. Super straightforward. Yeah, a very lovely pattern. But that is all the things that I have made recently that I wanted to share. I have made some other stuff, but these were all the noteworthy things that I felt like I could talk about with some substance. Some things that I've never made before, some things that I revisited. These things I'm actually proud of and have been wearing over and over again, or will be wearing over and over again once the weather is right. But that is all for me today. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. And if you're back and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe. It's free. Thanks again so much for being here. And until next time, bye.